See, I'm an ugly.
I've spent my entire life in the gym. By the time I was 14 years old, I knew that I wanted to be one of the best bodybuilders in the world. And I wanted to make an impact in my sport. I wanted to be on the Olympia stage, I wanted to be in the magazines, and I wanted to promote women's bodybuilding. I've been able to accomplish all those things, but I'm not done yet.
Welcome inside the RxMuscle studios in Westbury, New York for a special edition of Iron Debate. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us on this 11th day of December in the year 2014. As always, we are presented by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. All debate, no agreements. That is the name of this show, Iron Debate. It is a special episode. Why is that? Because tonight we will have our first female combatant entering the Iron Debate. And with that, we say hello to Denise Masino, an IFBB bodybuilding pro from Los Angeles, California. Good evening, Denise.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
You're making history tonight, the first female to enter the Iron Debate. Your thoughts?
That's awesome. And I just want you to know that I'm so ready for this. I want you to see, Chris, I'm ready.
Oh my goodness.
Prepared. I got my boxing gloves.
Denise has come.
Is that Dave? Am I on the camera? Am I live? Huh?
With that, let's go over to Portland, Maine, and introduce the man they call the technician, Chris Aceto. Chris, your thoughts on the pink boxing gloves, and what is this? You're blindfolding yourself.
I had my prop too, because if Denise was going to knock me out with those gloves, I had kind of like a fetish prop. It's the tie tied around my eyes, and I thought, because you know what, I know Denise is not a spring chicken, but
wow,
she's a 10, definitely on a scale of 1 to 10, and I have a feeling she's probably smarter than she is even good looking. So I'm a little bit worried that when it comes to debate, that either one, she's going to outdo me, or two, I'm going to be like rope-a-doped by her beauty, and I'm going to take her lightly and then end up losing. So I got my fingers crossed, and I got my rabbit's foot out, and I hope I do a good job and don't let the RX listeners down.
Well,
yeah,
Chris
well, you know what? I feel the same way, Chris, and it's really nice to meet you for the first time, I have to say.
Well, Chris Aceto firing a shot, but then coming back with the redeeming factor after another redeeming factor. So things getting interesting very early on. Joining me in studio, as always, the boss, Dave Palumbo. Dave, Species Testalize, tell us more about it.
Well, first of all, I want to introduce my my co-host here.
Okay.
We haven't. If you guys want to, we're trying to name her. So she is a Het Fire Diamond boa constrictor, a baby, obviously, very small. And she's part of the Species family. And at Species Nutrition, we have a lot of animals because we're always trying to figure out what species we are. Anyway, getting back to Testalize, which has been rebranded and relaunched. A lot of people always ask me about how to raise natural testosterone levels. It's a two-pronged type of question, because a lot of guys just they know that increased testosterone means more muscle in their body. But people don't realize really what how testosterone, is released in the body. Obviously, the body can release testosterone from the testicles, but a lot of times we stop producing testosterone as we get a little older. And a lot of times it's due to high estrogen levels, which is a female hormone. So if you really want to boost testosterone the most, you really got to make sure we lower estrogen levels and optimize the hormone levels in the body. Create the proper environment so the testosterone can be elevated. So Testalize addresses that. It reduces estrogen. It reduces another hormone known as DHT, which then allows testosterone to stay high. And there's also some great boosters in here that will physically boost testosterone as well. So it's like a three-pronged approach to increasing testosterone production. But no one wants to hear about that. People want to hear about what Denise Masino, what Chris Aceto, and what I have to say about tonight's topics.
So let's get right into it. Here we go. If you want to join in the conversation, you can tweet your questions, tweet your comments to hashtag RxDebate, or you can join in the conversation on the Muscle Central Forum on RxMuscle.com. It is free to register if you are not already a member. Here we go. Our first subject of the night has to do with female bodybuilding and the controversy that has taken place with that division. Denise, we're going to start with you. The first question, and this is a multi-faceted question, but the first place we're going to go with this, it seems as if more and more women are now going from bodybuilding to physique. First, I'm going to ask you, is that a fair and correct assessment? And if so, why?
Well, I think that number one, what's happening is that there are more and more physique competitions for women. And so with less pro-women bodybuilding categories being used at shows, I think women are being forced to sort of make a choice to either try to compete on a physique stage to stay in the competitions. And that might be one of the things that's, motivating women to do that. And, the thing about the categories is this: a lot of people have a problem with physique category versus women's bodybuilding, and they feel like one is undercutting the other. My perspective on it is a little bit different. Bodybuilding is an aesthetic choice. And, the nature of the sport really is that through years of training and muscle development, you might start off in a lower level. If you continue to train, you inevitably become a bigger, more mature athlete. And a lot of times you find yourself pushed from one category into the next, and it is a choice. And I think a lot, unlike a lot of people, physique is good for bodybuilding because it's bringing in more people into the sport. So I don't think it's a negative.
So Chris, I'm going to go over to you. Let's get your assessment. Is it true? Is it correct that more and more female athletes are going from bodybuilding to pursue physique?
I think that I would agree with that statement. Yes, that more and more people, females, are gravitating. Either they're gravitating initially, they're starting working out, or they're going from some type of sport and trying to take their body to the next level, and they're probably choosing women's physique over women's bodybuilding because my guess is that nobody is going to criticize a woman's physique competitor as looking, quote, masculine. And a lot of females love the feeling of having muscular development, but they don't like to go over the line, whoever may define that line. I mean, it's up to the person to define that line, but they don't want to take it to the level where people are saying, you look like a man, or you look masculine. And I think if you go back and if you look at Denise Masino photos when she was bodybuilding, she was peeled, not ripped, sliced at some shows. I remember. And but she retained all her shape and curves that would make Johnny Styles whistle at her and probably proposition her. So, I think that's where we're at right now is people who are coming into the field of bodybuilding, weight training, females are gravitating towards women's physique, and you're now seeing some women bodybuilders kind of like giving it up and saying, I'm going to segue into women's physique division. And I agree with Denise that that the longer you train, I think she was summarizing, I'm not, a woman will train, and naturally she's going to add more muscle. But at some point, they probably want to have to make a decision. Do I want to, bodybuild, or do I want to have a physique like women's physique? And what we've seen already in the last 2-3 years is the gradual process where women's physiques have already pushing the envelope in terms of what is a women's physique competitor. 3 years ago, the girls who were women's physique shows would get destroyed in a show that was held 6 months ago.
Oh, Chris, you brought something up, and that's what I want to.
The nature.
Well, yeah, Denise, I want to bring you up back on a point that Chris just brought up, and you alluded to the respect that you give to the physique division, but Chris brings up the point of aesthetics and how there may be some resentment amongst the bodybuilding core, as the word he used, manly. Is that something that enters your mindset or the collective mindset of female bodybuilders as you've seen sort of this exodus to the physique division? So let me bring Dave in on this conversation, because that is a point, Dave, that Chris did bring up, and it was something that Denise was alluding to. Is that something you feel that amongst female bodybuilders is a growing sentiment?
I don't know. I think that a lot of people are followers in our industry, and I think that the women kind of follow, just like the men. They follow whatever the trends are that the organization lays out and what the judges will reward. Let's face it. And I kind of hate to admit that he's right, but Bill Dobbins, who's is a big women's bodybuilding photographer and writer. And he just been around the industry forever. He wrote the Arnold Encyclopedia with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He said it best, and I think he's almost right here. Women's physique is almost like lightweight women's bodybuilding. What they did was they created a lightweight division, kind of like the 212 division is for the men's bodybuilding open. And I think that I think the two can be compatible, but I think women are so afraid now to say they're bodybuilders, because it's like the F word almost in competing, that now what they're doing is they're saying, I'll be a women's physique competitor. But women's physique, like Chris said, is now evolving to the point where it's almost looking like lightweight bodybuilding.
Well, Chris, let me bring you back on this, because the second part of this discussion, of this topic, there seems to be more and more of an influence now from organizations, from sponsors, that, and again, when you think about the systematic decommissioning, right? Actually, Denise, we have Denise back on the line. So, Denise, let's bring you back on this conversation. And again, going back to the aesthetic part that you were alluding to about the celebration of the female body in the physique division, and then Chris bringing up sort of the M word, the manly. Is that something that really enters the collective mindset of today's female bodybuilder?
Here's the thing. I think it's definitely a part of the discussion, right? And it feels like the most obvious part of the discussion. But if you think about it from a developmental process, right? We need new athletes, young athletes in our sport, just like any other sport does, in order to keep the sport alive and growing. And when you look at a professional bodybuilder or a national level, which is also professional level bodybuilder, the physiques are so extreme. We're an extreme sport that they feel unattainable to the average person, right? And so unattainable is not appealing to somebody who is aspiring to jump into something that they have to commit time, energy, effort, and a lot of money into. And so I think that the physique and even the lower echelon categories are really, really important. People criticize bikini, and then they criticize fitness, and they criticize figure, and and the thing is that the idea in my mind is, how many new people can we get into the fold to help grow our sport, to help grow weightlifting and training, not just working out and doing Pilates and yoga for women? How many ways can we get people initiated? And so the stage creates the challenge for the athlete. It gives them something to shoot for, which is really, really important, because you need to be incentivized, right? And so I think physique 3 years ago represented a more attainable physique for women. And they thought, okay, I might be able to do that, okay? And then what inevitably happens is, as you get hooked as the lifestyle becomes more yours, you do have to make the choices about whether or not, your body wants to be a quote unquote physique competitor's body or a bodybuilder. And that, again, is an aesthetic choice.
Well, Denise, let me ask this second part of this discussion, and really what seems to be the more current part of the bodybuilding division. It seems as if bodybuilding in the female realm is systematically being decommissioned. Do you get that sense?
Well, I guess the Women's Olympia doesn't have a women's bodybuilding. There is no women's bodybuilding Olympia coming in 2015. Am I correct about that?
Well, for the time being, Dave, if you want to confirm.
It appears that way, yeah.
So so we lost the Miss International stage. Those are two really bad signs for pro women's bodybuilding at the elite level. It's not a good thing.
Let me ask you this,
because I think that these women, they're a spectacle. They're really interesting to look at.
Sure.
Never mind getting to know them, because they're incredibly interesting women to get to know. And the sport is an extreme sport. It is what it is. But if you look at what happened this year in the Olympia physique category, women's, and you look at last year, and the difference between Dana as the first Miss Olympia physique winner and Malakarna this year, I will tell you, I would say that when I was competing, I was more a Malakarna physique bodybuilder than a Dana. Malakarna is carrying a lot of muscle on that body, and I love it. I mean, I think she's a wonderful representative, and she's a lightweight bodybuilder in my mind. And to take that point a little bit further, all of these women are bodybuilders. Whether if you're in the weight room and you're squatting and you're lifting weights, and in the gyms, there are so many new chicks who are squatting. It used to be, do you even lift, bro? Now it's, do you even squat? Because the aesthetic is changing. Women are feeling more empowered and not afraid of having a little bicep delt. So I think all these women are bodybuilders. It's just, what level are you at right now, and how far are you going to go?
Sure. Denise, let me ask it to you in this way. Do you feel as, again, and it seems to be some level of agreement that female bodybuilding is, in a way, being systematically phased out. Now, do you feel as if that is creating pressure from the organizations, maybe even from sponsors, for women, for those in the female bodybuilding realm, to go over to physique? And is that really an influencing factor?
I think it is going to create pressure for the women who still want to compete, women bodybuilders who still want to compete at the elite shows and on the top stage. Definitely. I can't imagine what it would be like for me if I was still competing, trying to make that decision. As a smaller woman, it would have been easier for me, because I'm petite to begin with, and I was trying to compete with women who, had 50, 60 pounds on me on stage all the time. So, this change would have probably benefited me when I was competing, just like the lightweight division did. But I feel for the women who, the Alina Popas, the Yaxani Orkian, who are amazing athletes, who now find themselves without top stages. And my gut is that there will be top stages. It's just a matter of who's going to do the promotion, where it's going to happen, and how it's going to be reinvented. That's what I see happening, because it's not going to go away.
Sure, Chris. Let me bring you. Let me ask you the same question. Just given the way that female bodybuilding has been sort of systematically phased out, or at least it's in the process of it, so it seems. Do you feel as if this is creating pressure for female bodybuilders from sponsors, from the organizations, to now maybe enter in physique, whereas otherwise they may not have?
Well, it creates pressure on the female bodybuilder, because, what are you getting up at 5 a.m. for if you can't go to the Olympia and put on your suit and hit a front double bicep, or the Miss International? It just gives you second tier, quote, fake shows. I mean, who wants to? Everybody, man or woman, who wants to be a champion bodybuilder, they want to get up in the morning, and it's worth it to them to get up in the morning. If they're a real athlete, they don't get up for a paycheck. They get up to train their ass off as hard as they can to beat everyone else on the stage, whether the Mr. Olympia is $275,000 for first prize or $50,000. A true competitor trains for the for the hardcore passion of doing what he or she loves to do. So when you've established 20 years, 25 years, I don't even know how many years of it having the Miss Olympia, but they've had great, very famous female bodybuilders over the years who we all know who the names are, even if they had less development. Corey, Rachel McLish, Bev, Linda, Kim Chevesky, and everyone, and I can't even remember who's the girl who won 10, 20 times. The Linda clone. See how bad my memory is. My father's Alzheimer's is washing off on me. But the point is this: if you have like a Florida Grand Prix instead of the Miss Olympia or the Miss International, how hard can you really train, and how much can you really dig deep to be the Florida Grand Prix champion? It's nice to be able to call yourself, even if it's $500 first prize, I am Miss Olympia, and Phil Heath is Mr. Olympia, and Flex Lewis is Mr. Olympia 212, and Melicarni is Physique Olympia, and we're all Olympian champions. I mean, there's a status to it, there's an importance to it, there's prestige to it, there's history to it. And that's why I'm surprised I'm shocked really that with the history that they would just let it go. I can see holding it separate from, which I think it will flourish more. I think the problem is having it with such a big weekend, it gets lost and people think that nobody gives a shit. I think if they had the Miss Olympia a different weekend at a small venue, the athletes would show up, a good crowd would show up, sponsors would show up, and we could continue the idea of there being a Miss Olympia bodybuilding champion. And that's what I would ideally like to see happen is that
let's get David
somebody save it by having it separate from the ginormous weekend, which is the pilgrimage out to Vegas, which is just, it's just such a big event that the Miss Olympia gets swallowed up and devalued with what's going on out there.
Dave, let's get you in on this. Again, the conversation or where we're going with this is whether or not female bodybuilders are now feeling pressure from an organizational level, perhaps from sponsor level, to go to physique, whereas otherwise they may not have.
I don't think the organization is the problem. I think the organization loves bodybuilding. I mean, it started with women's bodybuilding. I think the problem is the sponsors, and I think that's where the pressure is coming from. I mean, as a supplement company owner, I'm like ridiculed if I have a woman bodybuilder at my booth, working my booth. They're like, you can't have that big girl. That's a bit. They only want bikini and figure girls at these booths. It's like I'm a mockery, or I'm like a pariah in the industry because I want to support a women bodybuilding. So I don't think that it's the organization. I think it's the sponsors don't want it. They don't want to see it anymore. They don't think it's good for sales, and I think that's why the organization was forced to come up with this other division. And unfortunately, fortunately, we're a bodybuilding division. So I think that ultimately we're seeing the evolution of women's physique occurring very rapidly. Charles Darwin would probably swallow his tongue if he saw the evolution occurring so fast, because we want to see bodybuilders, and let's face it, we want to see girls posing on stage. And really, what women's physique is, it's going to replace women's bodybuilding inevitably, even though the two are compatible if you wanted to. But it's like women's bodybuilding's got this stigma that just no one wants to hear that title. So I think that the women who do like to put muscle on will be able to do it in women's physique probably in another 2-3 years, and we'll just see a replacement, and that's what will happen.
So we move on now to our second subject. Denise, as somebody who owns a website that caters to adult entertainment, and it's been a topic of controversy how well adult entertainment mixes with bodybuilding, with physique, with fitness, with the IFBB organization. Is it appropriate in your opinion, for an IFBB athlete to be selling this type of material and really mixing those two brands when you cater adult entertainment?
Well, it's obvious what I think about that question because I do it. I have been producing, publishing, promoting, selling adult entertainment with female bodybuilders as the star in those productions. And so I do think it's appropriate. We're just talking and Dave just said that at his booth with a product line called Species, a hardcore bodybuilding product line, he gets ridiculed and criticized for not having bikini chicks. So is the sexualization for marketing purposes and for attention grabbing and for sales appropriate? Obviously it is. I mean, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I just basically took a concept that we know works for obvious reasons, and I applied a new aesthetic to it. I said, just because you're a female athlete, just because you're a female jock, just because you have muscle as a woman does not devalue your sensuality, your commercialization capabilities, your marketability, your allure. And in my world, bodybuilding has always enhanced my sexuality. It's always enhanced my sense of femininity, which is why I do it. It empowers me, and it always has. And so is it appropriate? Absolutely 100%. And, when I started with my partners, the magazine that we published, it's almost 20 years ago, there were other publishers in the business and people who said it would never work. It doesn't go together. Muscle and sex doesn't work. And well, here we are, fast forward, I'm still in the game. There are a lot of people that are not. And as they say, the rest is history.
Well, let's obviously there is a lot of criticism, which is why this is a topic of debate. What is your general response to that criticism?
So, I'm sorry, you're asking me
in general of mixing adult entertainment with this profession, and especially as an IFBB pro. Of course, there is a lot of general criticism. What is your general response when you hear that kind of criticism?
Well, it's a funny thing because in all the years that I've been doing this and promoting, the sensuality and the sexuality of strong women, I really have not had a lot of people confront me with criticism. I think the way most people assume. Now, maybe that's because the conversations are happening outside of my earshot, which is the way people generally do things. So responses to criticism, I'm just going to say that, what I do is not for everybody. Being a female bodybuilder separates me. So I get criticism for that. But honestly, I don't care. At the end of the day, it's my aesthetic. It's my choice. I'm empowered by it. I love what I do. I love what my sport does for me. And it's a very creative form of work for me. And that's how I feel about it.
Chris, let's go over to you now. Is it appropriate for an IFBB pro, somebody who represents the sport at a high level, to be mixing that with adult entertainment and really leveraging that in that regard?
I think it's for a competitor at a high level, I think it's inappropriate. And I think it's inappropriate. The first reason it's inappropriate is because bodybuilding is a punching bag as it is. Bodybuilding, males or females, get criticism for anything that we do or that they do, whereas other athletes wouldn't be recipients of that same criticism. And of course, the drug issue is the first thing that comes to mind. And yet, as bodybuilders, we've been saying for years, well, baseball players and football players and cyclists, and the response from quote media is like laughed, like, "Oh, come on, baseball players just eat apple pie and go to church on Sunday. Nobody really takes steroids." So there's that criticism. So if a high level competitive bodybuilder, male or female, is engaged in adult entertainment, however you define that, they're going to be a moving target, and there would be the wagons would circle around that individual and try to bring down the whole sport. So, for example, if Phil Heath was going out and making movies or something in adult entertainment, that would be the end of Phil Heath. People would circle around him and say he can't represent us as the best bodybuilder in the world. And there's still that stigma, of course, on any profession. So it's not necessarily bodybuilding. You could say a baseball player, if he was doing, adult entertainment, or a woman professional volleyball player, if she was doing adult entertainment. The fact is that society as a whole still holds people who are athletic, quote, champions to a different standard than a lawyer could get away with doing it. A guy who heads up a whole professional law firm with 10 employees, 10 lawyers working under him, he or she could be working on the side in the industry and could still practice law, and people would come and see him or her as their lawyer and make that distinction and say, well, he or she is, it's fine. I don't care what he does in his, on the side, or what he does or she does as another profession. I'm here for legal advice. But when it comes to sports, that's it's just not going to work.
Well, Denise, let me bring you back in, because Chris brings up another angle, and that is the stigma that society will generally attach to adult entertainment. And again, you as someone representing the sport, what would you say to that as far as, the stigma attached to this industry?
I think that the stigma that's attached to this industry has nothing to do with porn or adult entertainment. I think that the stigma that this industry has is completely unrelated to that. And if the wagons were going to be circled, I would never have gotten to the Olympia stage. I would never have been in the top 5 at the Miss International. I would never have won the show in New York, which incidentally I was responsible for helping make happen. So I don't agree. Obviously, I don't agree. But I'm going to say this, though, that I'm not generally motivated by fear. And because I'm so accustomed to making my own way, it takes guts to do that, just like it takes guts to be a bodybuilder. I learned early on that sports are large entertainment businesses. That's how you make money in sports. And there has never been money in women's bodybuilding. Why? Because it's not viewed enough as enough of an entertainment sport. So this is my way of bringing entertainment value into it, and to speaking to an audience that clearly was out there. So, I disagree with Chris Aceto. I mean, I could show you my Olympia medals, and the wagons are not circling.
Well, I mean, there may be exceptions to the rule, but I can tell you, Phil Heath is going out doing a porn film tomorrow. He's done.
But he doesn't have to, because Phil Heath is making so much money.
I know, but let's just take the money out of it. You're right. So he does not have to.
It's necessary for him to do that.
I understand completely.
Here's the thing. Honestly, bodybuilding for me is a hobby. It's a lifestyle. It's a passion that I found a way to turn into an expressive, creative profession. I'm making my living as a result of what I do, not through bodybuilding the sport, because I never made enough money in purses. It costs me money to bodybuild as an elite professional bodybuilder. So I had to reconcile those differences. And the interesting thing is, and I think this is what a lot of people might not recognize, is that there is this assumption that, what you're doing is disrespectful, or it's inappropriate. And the hypocrisy that runs with that perspective or that spoken word, just it boggles my mind, because those are the same people that will be logging on to my website or other websites and having a field day, enjoying the power that these women, that these athletes represent, that turn them on so much, and then live the rest of their lives like 9 to 5, denying that they're attracted to that, because somehow it's morally incorrect or inappropriate. But I think that's bullshit. I choose to live more honestly than that, to be honest with you. And you know what? My numbers prove that what I'm saying is more true than what you are.
Well,
now,
Denise,
again,
let me ask the question that Chris brought.
The point was not that you're not successful in your business. The point was that if a top-level bodybuilder, and I use the top...
I'm going to interrupt you, Chris, for a second.
I
want to interrupt you.
The exception, not the rule. But if Phil Heath was going out and making heterosexual porno films tomorrow, or then yes, the wagons that would circle around him, and he would not be Mr. Olympia next year, period. He wouldn't win, and his sponsors would drop him. They would drop him based on the moral character of how they would say his fans would judge him. So I understand that you are living your life without fear and forging your own path and are successful in what you do. But the fact is, within the sport, let's just take men's bodybuilding, it will not stand.
Let's just say it like it is. The 5 million pound elephant in the room that no one's mentioning is Kai Green. Kai Green did some early in his career, some sexual porn. It's all over the internet. Everyone knows about it. We don't need to bring it up or show pictures of it. And here's a guy who arguably should have been Mr. Olympia maybe once or twice and hasn't been Mr. Olympia. Has that hurt him, Chris? Has that hurt him, Denise? Answer that.
Yeah, Dave, I'll tell you this. It's different, Dave, than him today making movies for profit versus 15 years ago trying to pay his rent, going out and doing something which he may or may not, and probably does, regret.
But it did hurt him.
It did hurt him. It's different.
It did hurt him, though. I'm saying it does hurt him, and I think it's still there.
I'll make it even easier, dude. I worked with Bob Paris. He was gaying out, and I'm telling you this: it hurt his career. Period. End of story.
Right. But
it hurt his career that he was gaying out.
Yeah, and that was before.
Because that's the moral. That's the moral perspective.
It's the moral hypocrisy. It's the moral hypocrisy that we have to deal with.
It's the puritanistic, hypocritical bullshit answer that people are pressured by.
No, but whether it be hypocritical, it is reality. In other words, that he came out as a professional bodybuilder, and we will get him on this show, and we'll get him on the radio show, and he will tell you it hurt his career. Judges told him outright to his face, and he was not. And you would think that he just came out and said this: "I'm gay." He didn't say, "I'm gay and I'm doing adult entertainment on the side." My God, they probably would have just retired his posing trunks if they had heard that, which he was not doing. But my point is that whether it's hypocritical, Denise, or not, there is an odd moral component still in society that, whether right or wrong, deems people who are in an adult industry as, quote, the other and not like us. And so they are automatically, to some degree, ostracized, and in this case, my point is, would be less successful than if they did not engage in that activity.
Well, Denise, let me go back to you real quick, because I want to ask you this question. This is something that Chris has brought up a couple of times now in this debate. If Phil Heath were to go out tomorrow and do an adult movie, money aside, let's assume he did it for free. He's not doing it for the money. He did it. Mr. Olympia, top of the world in the men's bodybuilding realm. If he does that, Chris' assertion is that he is done. Do you agree? And if so, is that correct? Is that the right response, or is he not doing anything wrong in your eyes?
I'll tell you what's inappropriate is me to try to speak on his world, because it's not my world. I don't know his world. And the truth is that the men's world and the women's world, as inappropriate as it might be, this is a reality, is still very different. We're not on level playing field here.
True.
I'm a feminist. I believe that I'm entitled to the same rights that you men are. Okay? As an athlete, as a businesswoman, as a sexual human being, all rights, all of them. And the truth is that there's always been a double standard. You know, men can fuck around, they can have a mistress. They're men. A woman does it, she's a slut. You know, it's that kind of thing. I don't agree with that. I was brought up with that mentality, but lucky for me, I had a father who said, you make your own way. You work hard. You take pride in what you do, and you can create your own reality. You have to be independent, and you don't have to be forced to think that a man can make your choices and decisions for you. So I'm a free thinker in that sense. But there is still a double standard. It's like listening to the CEO of Microsoft say a woman should not ask for a raise. She should just keep her head down, work hard, and her work will be recognized, and then she will get her just due. But women are still making 87 cents on a dollar compared to men. So I don't know Phil's world. It's very, very different from mine. I can tell you because I've competed as an elite athlete in this sport most of my adult life, okay? His reality is very different from mine. I have to play the cards I've been dealt, see? So I can't speak to that. It's totally different.
All right, so Dave, let's go to you for the final word on this very, very heated subject.
Yeah, I agree with Denise. I think it is a huge double standard, and I think that the women's side of the sport, there's so little money involved in it that no one cares what they do. Matter of fact, I think the organization is happy that they're making money some way, so that they don't have to. The organization doesn't have to put up the kind of prize money that they do for the men. So, you know, you can't really fault, I guess, a woman for doing that or looking for a way to make money. It's unfortunate that that's what they have to do. But let's go back to the old Puritan standard that Chris pointed out. I mean, yeah, if we'd want to get bodybuilding on TV, it probably wouldn't be a good idea for Mr. and Miss Olympia to be, doing porn. However, the reality is we're never going to be on TV. I mean, this year alone, NBC Sports was supposed to put us on, and I don't see it anywhere. So it never got on TV. We'll probably never be on TV. And there's nothing wrong with that because there's plenty of money in the industry. There's plenty of people who are fans of the industry. We have plenty of people going into the industry, new people. We see these shows are growing by leaps and bounds every year, so it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, the Mr. Olympia title is probably the one title that there is a lot of money behind, and there is a lot of top, corporate sponsorship behind, and that you probably will, once again, you have someone involved in the porn industry, probably not going to be a good idea, probably not a great idea, to be doing, stuff that the general society sees as being, bad, or, whatever judgment they make on that. If a kid's going to go buy supplements, and they want to use Phil Heath as the guy to sell the supplements, Phil's got to be kind of squeaky clean. Women bodybuilders aren't selling supplements, not to the masses, that is. So once again, there is a double stand there, and it doesn't matter. And, once again, who's going to tell Denise how to make money, when she's making more money than probably every single woman in the industry?
On that note, we're going to step aside and take a break. A lot more Iron Debate when we return. A reminder, Wednesday, December 17th, the ladies of RxMuscle are back for another episode of The Fitness View. That is going to be 8 o'clock Wednesday night, December 17th, right here on RxMuscle.com. We'll be back right here on RxMuscle.com. Hi. I am the ingredient.
this is IFBB Figure Pro Heather Dees, and I love my Species ISO bag. If you want to be like me, go to speciesnutrition.com and order yours today.
We got a nice little care package from Quest Nutrition.
There better be some apple pie in this. I'm taking apple pie at all of them.
All right, what up? It's Gilbert Niño Melendez, chilling with my Quest bar here. First and foremost, most importantly, they're delicious. But it's good to have a good protein bar before training. Gluten-free, you gotta love it. And it tastes good, and it feels like it's doing the trick. I listen to my body, and it says yes to this, so give it a shot.
They taste great. They're awesome. They allow me to feel like I have a little treat while I'm still eating real strict for my training camp and everything. So I'm super excited. Off the top of my head, I have to say the cinnamon roll, the apple pie, and probably the lemon. But I haven't had one yet that I don't like.
Hey guys, it's Dave Palumbo, and I'm happy to announce that we have a brand new release from Species Nutrition. It's called Protolize. It's the world's best quality, best tasting whey protein isolate fueled protein pudding on the market. Now, we all know that we love pudding. We grew up eating pudding as kids, but the Jell-O brand pudding that we ate was usually loaded with sugar and milk and all kinds of stuff that really was not good for us. But I created the first pudding that you can actually eat while contest dieting. It's got virtually no carbs, virtually no fat, and it's got a whopping 30 grams of protein. Like I said, it's called Protolize, and what makes it so significant is that you take one serving of this, put it in your little bowl here, add 2 ounces of water, mix, and you have instant pudding, vanilla, and delicious chocolate. This chocolate pudding is better than Jell-O brand pudding. I guarantee you, you will love the taste. There is absolutely no aftertaste. And what I did was, to give it a little extra body, we put a little micellar casein into the mix to thicken it up, but also what it does is it makes this Protolize protein pudding time released. Now, when we're dieting and we don't want our food to go through us too fast, but we want it to sustain us a little bit, give us a little bit of satiety so we're not as starved, we put in this casein, and it delays the absorption of the protein long enough to hold you between meals. You eat this, serving this right before bed, and I'm telling you, you will not be hungry during the night. And I also promise you this will be the best tasting protein pudding that you've ever put into this mouth. No aftertaste. You can't even tell that it's artificially sweetened, and there's not a single gram of sugar in this thing. So guys, if you're looking for a high quality whey protein isolate fueled, not soy, there's no soy in this product, protein pudding, and you're looking for that snack to hold you over, or maybe, you know what, maybe you're trying to bulk up and you just need something that tastes different. You don't want to have another protein shake that's going through you. You want something with a little body. You take 1 scoop of this, or if you're a big guy, you do 2 scoops and you'll get 60 grams of protein in your protein pudding. You mix it up and you got it ready to eat, and I got to tell you, this is delicious. I think I outdid myself on this one.
New Breed Nutrition, we don't train to lose.
Welcome back to Iron Debate, RxMuscle.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us tonight. A heated episode of Iron Debate. We are making history. We have our first female combatant in the Iron Debate, Denise Masino, bringing it tonight. We are sponsored, as always, by SpeciesNutrition.com. SpeciesNutrition.com. Check out the website for all the upcoming holiday deals. Dave, some big news coming up for Species at the end of this year and early January 2015. Why don't you tell the audience about it?
Well, I'm excited because I love new flavors. We have such great tasting flavors already, and especially in our isolized whey isolate protein. We have the vanilla and chocolate peanut butter everyone loves. We came out with cinnamon donut. We can't even keep it in stock. Well, we did it again. We came out with even a better flavor. We actually have two new flavors coming out. We have cookies and cream, which have little pieces of cookie in them. Sugar-free cookie, that is. We don't want to put any carbs into this product. And we also have caramel macchiato. I don't even know how to describe it other than say you got to try it. It's delicious. And then we have our protolyzed protein pudding coming out. We have the cookies and cream flavor in that too, with the little pieces of the cookie in it. So imagine a pudding consistency with the little pieces of cookie. I mean, it's just crazy insane, and it still has the same great 30 grams of protein per serving for the pudding, with virtually no fat and protein. Virtually no fat or carbs. The isolized, same thing, no carbs, no fat. 27 grams of protein per serving. I love it. I love when we come out with new products. It's exciting.
Follow it all on SpeciesNutrition.com. You can follow Species on Facebook at facebook.com/SpeciesNutrition, and on Instagram, Species Nutrition, and on Twitter, /RealSpecies. Moving on now to our next topic of debate. Well, the last topic, which brought about a heated topic of conversation, was adult entertainment. Now we flip the tables and we talk about the fans. We talk about the fans of the bodybuilding world, the fitness world, the physique world, and many times the conversation goes to their tastes, to their fetishes, and whether or not they have the wrong idea of a female bodybuilder or a female physique competitor. So, Denise, I'm going to go to you on this one. The question is this. When you have these fans and the at times wrong idea, wrong perception that they may have of a female competitor, is that something that is a real topic of concern to you, or is it something where you just sit back and say, everybody has their own tastes and their own styles of what it is that they like?
Well, I'll tell you, my fans have just opened up my mind in so many ways. They've shared so much about their perspective from all over the world. The sport is really, I have a very rich life because of this sport, because of my participation and because of the fans. I love my fans because they love strong women. I mean, how could a woman not love a man or a woman who loves a strong woman? They champion my independence, my entrepreneurial ways, my perspective, my strength, and my individuality. And so, and they support all of that. So I have great gratitude for my fans. Tastes, many years ago, I had a photographer tell me, back when we were starting the magazine, you cannot fetishize female muscle. I think he said it's inappropriate. And I was really taken aback because I knew that this particular photographer loves women's bodybuilding. He loved athletes. And so he was being a hypocrite, and he didn't even realize it. And I get that. People don't realize sort of how they're talking out both sides of their mouth. And I said to him, you can't tell people 100% what they're supposed to find alluring. Women supposedly like men in uniform. Some men like blondes. Some men like small boobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I've learned so much by just listening to people. And part of why I do what I do and part of why my company developed to be what it is that my fans made me realize that they have such great admiration and respect for the strength of the woman bodybuilder that it makes them weak in the knees. How about that?
Well, Denise,
and it made me think that, you know what? It is actually a universal concept. It's a universal thing. Power is sexy.
Sure. Now, but
it's why you see maybe a not so attractive CEO, with a beautiful young bride. Power is sexy. And my fans champion that, and for that I champion them in return. What I do think, though, is that the fans of women bodybuilding, the fans of women athletes, female jocks, athletics, it doesn't matter what sport it is, they need to put their money where their mouth is. They need to go to events. They need to buy 8x10s. They need to sponsor athletes, because at the end of the day, it's the sports, the sports fans that dictate what happens with that sport. That's my promoting, and that's what it's always been.
Sure, Denise, but let me take it from another angle. There are derogatory comments made by fans. And you know what? I don't want you want to call them fans. Hecklers, trolls, per se. What do you say to that? And is that something that concerns you as, again, I brought up the wrong perception angle. I'm not talking about your fans. Clearly, your fans support your work and they support the empowerment of women in this sport. But there are those that look at this and call it out in derogatory fashion. What do you say to that? And is that a legitimate problem, not only for female bodybuilding, but for fitness, physique, for female competitors in general?
I don't think it's a problem. I think that you have to lead by example. I think that if you want to change a person's perception or perspective on something, if you want to give them an alternative to whatever narrow-minded perspective they have, you have to live it. And it's not a good idea to be combative, like F you, this, that, and the other thing. I don't believe in that. There are many, many times when I talk to people who will say, but the adult, and then I give them my perspective, and they're like, they walk away like, wow, I never really thought about it that way. So I think that people don't know what they don't know. I think that there are a lot of assumptions, there are a lot of misinterpretations, and people act and speak on those things. And I've learned not to allow myself to be too knee-jerky when it comes to that. I know I'm different. It's my choice to be. If I wanted to blend, I would, but I don't. And so with that comes a certain amount of acceptance that people are going to react. But isn't that really what a bodybuilder is looking for?
Sure. Chris, let me get you in on this conversation. Again, the fetishy fans of women bodybuilders, physique, fitness, bikini, and again, the derogatory angle that at times they take, is that partially hurting the sport? Or again, is this something where you just have to sit back, ignore them, and accept the fact that everyone has a different taste?
Dude, everybody's got a different take on everything. The same people who would be making fun of female bodybuilders, women's physique competitors, men's bodybuilders would be calling a Japanese person a Jap, an Italian person a Wop, a black person a nigger, and a Jewish person a kike or whatever. So that's the world we live in, and that's called noise. And because of Instagram and Facebook and the world has gotten a lot smaller, and people can do it in a more anonymous way, which means they're just moronic and cowardly. People are going to criticize people. Half the country hate President Obama, and before that, half the country hated George Bush. So those two, are pretty powerful people, and whether you like them or not, pretty accomplished, and yet people will say the most outlandish things about them. So what are they going to say about the girl who's got arms bigger than some guy who really did get sand probably kicked in his face by someone when he was somewhere along the way when he was a little kid, and now here he is It's probably me, 160, 150 pounds. I'm no bigger than that. But, and then, he goes by the species booth and he sees some female bodybuilder there working with Dave, and he has a derogatory remark about her. So, it is what it is, and people are going to, be critical of anything. And I think that at the end of the day, if you are going to be good at anything, baking cookies or building biceps as a female, you have to focus on yourself and trying to improve that cookie and improve your biceps, irregardless of what someone else says. Because at the end of the day, you should be doing what you are doing to become a better you, not to please somebody that you don't even know.
Dave, let's get you in on this conversation again. The question is this: with fan fetishes, and I guess the thing that I'm still looking for the answer for. What I'm talking about is fans who see a female bodybuilder, physique competitor, bikini competitor, whatever, and they're coming at them from a derogatory sexual angle. Do you see this as a legitimate problem in this sport, or is this something where you just kind of sit back and say, all right, let them go, just ignore the noise?
I think the question is wrong because I wrote the question, so I think you're interpreting the question wrong. The question is the female fans of bodybuilding. And the female fans of bodybuilding, we all know, are a little odd, okay? Dare I say. Okay? They're a little off. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. I know they come from all walks of life, and there's normal ones, but there's a lot of fans that when you go to these shows, especially the women bodybuilding shows, you know who they are, and you know they're there to see the women bodybuilders. Now, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just amusing, I don't think it's painting a bad light on the women bodybuilders. They can't help who likes them and who's attracted to them, just like the men bodybuilders. And I was told, the first time I went out to Venice, California in 1994, someone came up to me in the gym and I was talking to him. I'm not going to mention who it is. Chris knows who it is. And he was a gay man. And he told me that 50% of the men who read Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine are gay. And it never dawned on me that that's their playboy, and is that bad? Does that make, the fans of bodybuilding like, oh, that's a bad, no, that's just who likes bodybuilders. And the people who like women bodybuilders just happen to be this unusual group of people. We've heard the word schmo used before, but I don't necessarily know if that's appropriate or not. But that's fine. Whatever. We should be lucky we have fans of the sport. It just seems to be that there's an odd population of people who love women bodybuilders. I can't explain it. I don't know why, but it's out there, and I'm sure Denise could speak to that.
Do you want to jump back in?
I absolutely do. I said so, Dave.
Yeah.
I know that you are a fan of female bodybuilders.
I guess I'm odd too.
Chris, wait, I'm not done. I know Chris is a fan of female bodybuilders. He was married to one of the best female bodybuilders at one time. And I don't like the word schmo, but if anybody's going to be calling anybody a schmo, I will call myself a schmo first because I am a fan of female bodybuilders. I think they're hot as hell. And I think that what it is maybe is that you just get to see a small group of people that are different to you, and so you're reacting maybe to that. I think also maybe fan of women bodybuilders are a group of people that may be, and this is less so today, that may be criticized publicly by their friends and their family as being odd. And so maybe you start to assume that role because you believe what people are telling you about you. And that's unfortunate. I like to try to empower the fans too, because I think that the fans of strong women, female bodybuilders in particular, need to be empowered because they need to be more public. I think that what we're really talking about is people who are fanatical, and they could feel a little weird because they are fanatical. And you can find them in football, and you can find them, all over the place.
That's going to do for that subject. We're now going to move on to maybe something that may not be as heated. It is something that we touched on at the beginning of the episode, and that is the state of women's bodybuilding. Now, we talked about how right now it's not on the Olympia calendar. That said, there may be some sort of an event that weekend in Vegas, but for the time being, it is not part of the originally programmed Olympia calendar, and that's started up a lot of chatter as to whether or not the women's bodybuilding division is slowly and systematically being phased out. So here's the question. It is 2014, and I know whenever you bring up the year, it's like, wow, we're in the future already. In 2020, Denise, we're going to start with you on this. In 2020, will the women's bodybuilding division, as we know it, still be around?
Things have already changed a lot, right? But I will tell you something that I think is funny. When I started about 20 years ago, do you know that was the question? That was the question 20 years ago.
Amazing.
And here we are, fast forward 20 years later. Women's bodybuilding, in my mind, is bigger than ever because more women are weightlifting. And, we're talking about the elite category, the hypermuscular women. Obviously, that category is what you want to focus on. But so I feel that women's bodybuilding will still be here 20 years from now. Yes. And we'll be asking the question again.
Chris, what about you? Will women's bodybuilding still be around, or at least be around in the way that we know it in 2020?
Yeah, it will, and it will because there will always be women who enjoy being extremely muscular. There will always be women who feel empowered by being extremely muscular. And just as there'll always be women who want to attain that look, there will always be people who want to be with them, see them compete, support them. It may be too much for the general bodybuilding audience. People may prefer to go to women's physique shows or bikini shows or figure shows or whatever it may be, but there will always be a segment that will appreciate extremely muscular women. I can agree with Denise that okay, she cheered a little bit, so I won't agree with her. No, but I can agree with her that this. I know from being married to a female bodybuilder, very muscular female bodybuilder, that the fan base is fanatical. It's way larger than people think. I can tell you that, the amount of fan mail that my ex-wife used to get was ridiculous. It was daily, tons, daily, all the time, every day, 365 days a year. And the people who were writing it were, of course, me, assuming would be schmoes. And you would get people from, it's a stereotype, every walk of life. So I think the market is there, and I think that really what may be a benefit here is that if the Miss Olympia branches off and is held in a small venue this year on its own, I bet it will be successful. I don't see it dying because I that's the challenge. My challenge, I just came up with it. My challenge to Denise is that, and the IFBB is that someone should organize the show this year because it won't die. And people will be surprised and they'll say, so-and-so had the Olympia, they had it in New Jersey, and they got a big turnout. I was so surprised. Well, that's my 25, 30-year experience in bodybuilding, that there's a bigger segment than we think that very muscular women, and they will not go away. And so to answer the question, in 2020, definitely women's bodybuilding will still be around.
All right, Denise, I want to bring you back on it because it seems as if both of you do agree that female bodybuilding will be around in 2020, but will it be the same as what we see today, or will there be differences? And if so, what fundamental differences do you foresee in 2020?
Well, I hope there'll be differences. There have to be differences. I think that part of what has to happen is that the approach to promoting women's bodybuilding needs to be shaken up a little bit. I have ideas. Of course, the wheels are always turning with me.
Let's hear some of the ideas.
No.
I have an idea for Denise. It's a very sexist idea, but I don't think that I don't think that it's in the best interest of female bodybuilders to have a male-dominated mindset promoting the sport, if that makes sense. I just think that, if it's going to survive, then someone who's a female with a female understanding of the sport, a Linda Murray, a Kim Chevesky, a Denise Masino. Corey Everson loves muscle, man. I'm telling you. She might not be as big as Iris Kyle, but ask Corey if she loves muscle. She loves muscle. And Corey, I know Corey from years ago. Corey doesn't train like, yellow little shiny machines and does cable crossover. She squats, deadlifts, bench press, incline dumbbells, bent over rows, shrugs, everything that somebody who would be training for a Mr. Olympia would do, she did. And she didn't do it with baby little light weights. So, there's, for someone like Corey, I think she probably, this is me putting words in her mouth, may think that the level may have gone a little bit too far for her taste, but this is somebody who can appreciate and respect the commitment it takes to be a Miss Olympia. Because I've always said it takes more to be a Miss Olympia than a Mr. Olympia. Sorry, everybody. And I have trained with lots of the best male bodybuilders when I didn't weigh 110 pounds in the world, and I trained with female bodybuilders. And Dave, from Colette, the female will always drive you into the ground. There's no better training partner than a female, because their level of, craziness of pain tolerance is ridiculous. And I saw Beth Francis train in California before. And I saw all the male top bodybuilders training in the same year at the same gym, and her workouts would put them to shame. So, to just see or to ask the question is disappointing. Will bodybuilding, female bodybuilding, and I'm not a tremendous fan of it anymore, but I am a fan. To ask the question, will it be around in 2020? To me, it's disappointing, and it's the wrong question. It should be, to what degree will it be successful in 2020?
Dave, let's get you in on this. Again, the future of bodybuilding in 2020. Will it still be around? And if so, will it still be around in the manner in which we know it today?
Well, thanks to Wings of Strength, which has been the main sponsor of all the women's bodybuilding the past couple of years. And I know they've added a couple, even though they've taken away the Olympia and the Arnold, they've added 2 shows. There's 6 pro bodybuilding shows this year, all sponsored by Wings of Strength. They're putting up all the money. If they disappear, women's bodybuilding's gone, because the organization has removed it from the 2 biggest shows out there. So, I don't know how long Wings of Strength is going to continue to put their financial support behind it. But if it gets to the point where they feel there's no, I don't know how much money they have in their bank, but if they feel like, we just can't do this anymore, women's bodybuilding is done. And I think what will happen is that women's physique will replace it. So women's muscle will never disappear. And I think that, in the sense of the question, will women's bodybuilding be around in 2020? I'm going to say no. But I'm going to see it's going to be around in a different form, and it'll probably be called women's physique. And I think that when we look back 5 years from now, we're going to see women's physique competitors that really look like the bodybuilders. Well, the way we should have seen them, all along. They never should have gotten so out of hand.
Just throw the labels out then. Who cares about the labels?
Just branding.
Yeah.
Well, Denise,
you know what?
I think the organization.
I'll tell you what. I got more. One of the best competitors I saw at the Nationals was the winner of the women's physique, and I said, this is this girl, because of her shape, her flow, her beauty, has bamboozled us into being a woman's physique. She's a bodybuilder.
Thank you.
For God's sake, she could have won the women's. She would have, in my eyes, I think I'm a pretty good judge, she would have won the women's bodybuilding that night.
Maybe the organization.
You keep throwing this physique versus female bodybuilding because you're looking at its overall size. But if you start thinking about it from like a somatotype, I'm a petite woman. I'm a bodybuilder because of the muscle maturity. But you could throw me into physique as well. So, I mean, they're the same thing. They're all bodybuilders, just at different levels.
Well, I think what they did was they rebooted. It's like, you can see these movies, they reboot Spider-Man, they reboot Superman. Yeah. They rebooted women's bodybuilding. And basically the women bodybuilders that are still in the women's bodybuilding division are basically an anachronism. They're still around, but they're really, they don't really belong around. But I guess women's physique hasn't caught up yet to where it needs to be. And when it gets caught up muscle-wise, the women bodybuilders that are left will switch over to women's physique, and you'll have one division, and that'll be the end of it. I really believe that's where it will be in 2020.
So let's move over now to the question and answers. Again, if you want to join in on this conversation, you can tweet us using the hashtag RxDebate, or you can ask your questions on the Muscle Central Forum on RxMuscle.com. If you're not already a member, it is free to join up, RxMuscle.com. The first one we have, Denise, we talk about physique, we talk about bodybuilding. Do you see, in your professional opinion, in your background, is there room for another female division? If so, what?
Well, I think we're up to 5 categories now. Starting at bikini and going up to women's bodybuilding. I think that's a lot of divisions. And I look at it as like a ladder. You start off at bikini, you get the bug, you keep training, you want your butt tighter, you want your bicep peak a little bit, you got to bring your lats up to, for symmetry. And then you end up, you go up the ladder. And that works for a new athlete, especially a young athlete. I cannot tell you, everywhere I go, women are attracted to me and they want to talk about working out. They want to talk about my muscles. And just yesterday I trained with a girl at from Lululemon, of all places. This is a yoga store, right?
Sure.
And she's been weightlifting, and we trained and we're doing legs, and I'm really muscular. And she looked at me and she said, I want my arms. My goal is to have my arms look like yours. I was shocked. Pleasantly surprised, because for my size, I'm hypermuscular. And the thing is that more and more and more young women, she's 25 years old, are attracted to not just working out and how empowering that is, but the idea of being a feminist and powerful and displaying that. And that's why I think that we're in our infancy with how, women see themselves. And Chris said something really beautiful before when he talked about.
I knew I'd win you over, but go ahead. I said something wonderfully beautiful. Go ahead. What was it?
That, just for the record, you said a couple of things that I absolutely thought were beautifully stated. One was that whoever promotes, the women's bodybuilding competitions and Wings of Strength, they're wonderful advocates of the women, the athletes. It should have a female's perspective, because they should be going after the female audience. Now, we're a very participant-heavy sport. You know what I mean? We don't have large audiences. That's one of our problems. We're not the spectator sport. So that kind of hurts us a little bit. That's not the kind of game we play. We're more participant athletes, and we participate watching because we aspire to be up on that stage. So we got to get more women in the arena, getting drawn to seeing what's going on, because when they do, they want to get on stage. And I deal with that all the time. And the other really cool thing is, I've met so many women who have done bikini competitions, and guess what their next show is? It's physique. They're not doing figure. They're not interested in figure, which is the next obvious step for them, because frankly, they're not ready for physique. They're ready for maybe figure, but they don't want that. They already aspire to that more muscular, tight, toned, fit body. And I think that is a sign of what's to come. It's a fabulous sign.
Denise, we have another question from the Muscle Central Forum on RxMuscle.com. What essential supplements should women take to achieve your muscular look?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. And I'm really pretty basic with my diet. I eat really well. My food, the staples of my diet are just really clean, good foods. And I make sure that I consume the protein that I need to repair and to build my muscle. When I talk to women and they say to me, what should I be taking? The first thing I say to them is get a really good protein drink, because you're not going to consume the protein that you need to build a tight, toned, fit body. And then, actually, I'm waiting for Dave to send me some of that new stuff.
It's on its way.
So I could test it. He hasn't done that yet.
It's on its way.
But the first thing I say to women is you need to consume protein because your muscles are made up of proteins. That's the first thing.
Denise, will we ever see you promote your own show, your own bodybuilding show, the Masino Classic?
You probably will. You probably will. And I don't know that it would be the Masino Classic, but I want to bring as many women into the fold as possible because, you know, I share my strength. That's what I want to do. And I do that by sharing my sport, my passion. Because people that don't work out, they just don't recognize how incredibly empowering it is. And my focus is women. Because I see a really big change happening, you know, in the next generations. And so I'd like to be promoting a show. I'd like to be promoting that concept in a much bigger way.
When is the next time we are going to see Denise Masino on stage?
I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully as a presenter.
We got another question here. Let's see what we have here. What do you think of Dana Lynn Bailey?
I think Dana's an awesome athlete. And I think this is something that I coach. I coach stage presence. I coach presentation. You know, obviously everything I've done is about presentation, and presenting women bodybuilders in a beautiful state, in a sensual, beautiful state, and showing how beautiful they can be. So Dana has this wonderful stage presence. So does Juliana, and she does her work. You could tell. You know, she walks the walk. She lives the life. She's got this beautiful little package, and she has a wonderful way of presenting it. So I like her.
I have a question, Denise. Who do you like better? Like Denise, if you had to pick, I guess for Miss Physique Olympia, do you like Dana Lynn Bailey? Or do you like Juliana Malacarni? Which was your option or your preferred physique?
Okay. I love Juliana.
I knew she was going to say
that.
You love muscle.
I love the muscle. But, I mean, it's just so beautiful. She just is, you know, she's perfect. It's all there. It's big. It's full. It's powerful. It's sexy. You know, that's kind of the physique that I always was trying to develop for myself. And she's petite, so I can identify with her on that level too, you know. So Juliana is my kind of body, and I was very happy to see her win.
Denise, I have to let you know, so on the Muscle Central forum, and again, if you're not already a member, you can go to RxMuscle.com. It is free to register. You're getting a lot of praise, and this is really very eloquently worded praise. Let me just read you a couple of them. One says, Denise is the epitome of class and sexiness, and a fellow Brooklynite as well. That one from Joe Pitaro. Another one coming from It's All Genetics. And you know what? He's saying something that we're getting a lot right now on our Twitter feed, that they really respect you, that you're very strong in your convictions, and they respect you even more for what you're coming out here and saying tonight. So what is your message to the RX Muscle community who's really showing large support to you here tonight?
You know, I'm filled with gratitude. I always am, and I've always felt that way about my sport, but it's because of the fans that I've always felt that way. I mean, my career is what it is because of my fans, because of their support. So I'm filled with gratitude, and that also includes the people that are in the sport, the judges, you know, the promoters. I have wonderful relationships with all these people. It's a small, unique community built mostly of fans, because you're not a part of the sport if you're not a fan. It's an aesthetic choice, so everybody has their favorites, and that's just how it is. But I'm filled with gratitude. It's my family, and I'm very thankful for the comments, and I appreciate it very, very much.
Denise, I have a question for you. It's really a statement, but it's a question too. A lot of people don't know what you've been up to lately, and I'd like to know, or I'd like you to fill in the fans as to what you're up to. Because I've seen you doing some interesting runs and athletic events dressed in weird costumes, and Johnny played a little bit of it before. You were all green as the Incredible She-Hulk, and talk to us about what you've been up to lately.
Well, for the last 3 years, I've been doing a challenge. I challenged myself and a group of people, whoever will join me, to do a mud run obstacle course for 2 reasons. A, to get people off the couch and to inspire them to challenge themselves physically, and B, to help raise money for St. Jude. And so I did it again this year for the 3rd time. And over the course of the last 3 years, me and my team, we raised almost $50,000 for St. Jude, which is nuts. And so that's where all the crazy costume stuff comes from, and a lot of the begging and complaining and crying about running, for a month each year. And so that's part of what I'm earning my wings.
Denise, what does your charity work mean to you, and what can aspiring female bodybuilders, female athletes take from what you're doing outside the gym?
What is it? Well, it's interesting. The hardest thing for me to do was not the obstacle course, even though I hate running. I mean, I hate it with a passion. And that was really difficult for me. The hardest thing for me to do was to ask people for money. I'm not really good at asking for help or for money. And it forced me to share a certain amount of vulnerability about myself. And there's just so much growth in that, that I would never have imagined, and so that's what I have to impart. When you put yourself out there and you challenge yourself, it's a really good thing, because there's so many unexpected things that come out of that. And for me, it was challenging myself with the fundraising, but also trying to meet this financial goal, and surpassing it. And the support that I got was just unbelievable and incredibly rewarding. And so, I've had other female bodybuilders say to me, there's this thing going on, my partner has this disease that's really little known, and I wanted to do something, but I wasn't sure if I should. And I said, you know what, you have to take the risk. Because the beautiful thing about the world today is that you think that you're dealing with a problem all by yourself, but you're not. And so the more public you go with it, you find that there are people out there who understand you, who can appreciate it, and who will support you, even if it's just with their words. So, yeah, we're doing it again next year. So,
well, Denise,
anybody who wants to join me,
definitely. Do you have where can they reach you if they have any questions about anything that it is that you're doing, bodybuilding or charity?
Well, so for the St. Jude fundraising, the website is activism.com. It's a play on words. ACTIVE-ISM.com. You see our team, and you see our fundraising numbers. It's closed. And so there you can, email me anything related to the St. Jude Run or that team or that. And then my websites, of course, musclepinups.com is our multi-girl website. You have to be over 18. Warning. And my website is denisemasino.com. And again, both of those websites are for adults.
Denise, excellent job tonight. Your first appearance on Iron Debate. You absolutely brought it. Thank you so much for the appearance, your job, and for all that you're doing in and outside the gym.
Thank you very, very much for having me. It was a pleasure. Chris, what a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it was a pleasure to meet you, Denise. I just would prefer to bring back a lightweight like Lonnie Tieper or Rich Piana, who are easier to debate than you.
Chris, is it true that you just signed up for Denise's website on the commercial break?
Yeah, look, I got it right here. Look, it's right on the on my iPhone, and see, I'm not a schmo. So
you evidently are. Yeah, you evidently are. We all are.
Shots fired at Lonnie Tieper and Rich Piana, so stay tuned for the next episode of Iron Debate. We are out of time. Day before we go, very special guest Monday night on Heavy Muscle Radio. Why don't you tell the audience about it?
You know, he's a very good friend of mine. We've been friends for probably almost 20 years. I worked with him at Muscular Development when I was over there, and obviously when I left, he's been over at Muscular Development for years. They let him go recently, and it's my privilege to have him on the Heavy Muscle Radio Show as our guest of the evening. The man I'm talking about is the rambling freak, the man with the exploding arms, Greg Valentino. What great stories he's got. I mean, this guy's been through the trenches and then some. He's got so many stories that the interview may be the longest interview I ever do. So, guys, tune in 8 p.m. Heavy Muscle Radio. That's Monday night, the #1 radio show in our industry. And Greg Valentino will be our guest, and I'm excited for the interview.
And then, of course, Wednesday night, December 17th, the ladies of RxMuscle are back for another episode of the Fitness Review. That's going to do it for Iron Debate, sponsored by Species Nutrition. Wanted to give a very, very special thanks to Johnny Styles, our producer, did an absolutely phenomenal job tonight. You saw the videos, you saw that excellent intro, and that is all the magic of Johnny Styles. Keep it locked to RxMuscle.com. I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Have a good night.